Welcome to my how-to video. My name is Halali'i, and today we'll cover some stylistic features to your direct labor variance table. Just a little bit of a review. Variance tables are mainly used in standard costing systems, and they are used in order to compare what should have happened to what actually happened. So it compares your standard costs to your actual costs. And just kind of shows you why certain things happened. Here's my template, and I will be explaining a couple of the smaller details that I like to include in my table that possibly you could include if you wanted to. One thing that I like to do is right below my variances, so you have your rate variance and your efficiency variance. What I like to do is create a little if function just to calculate whether or not the variance is favorable or unfavorable. So as you can see, I have my formula right here. If the rate variance is greater than 0, which basically means that we spent more than what we should have spent, then it's going to say unfavorable. Otherwise, it's going to say favorable. And the same goes for the efficiency variance over here. But I just like to include that so that I can know and tell whether or not a variance is favorable or unfavorable right off the bat. What I also like to do is reference my cells out here so that the numbers aren't directly tied to my table, so that I can change my table whenever I want. Say I'm doing a different problem and my actual hours are actually 18,000, I can just go ahead and change the actual hours right there, and it'll update. And I like to do that. The last thing that I'll be going over is basically the idea of giving your cells names, or naming your cells so that it's easier to identify them within a formula. So right now, for example, this cell F9 is F9. That's the name box, and that's its name. As you can see in my if function, I have the rate variance named, so it's kind of easy to see what cells are within that formula. Whereas over here, I also have it. But basically, formulas, when a formula, say I wanted to get, say this had 48 and this had 10, and I wanted to determine what that plus that is. Okay, so right now this just simply says G21 plus G20. Because the numbers that this formula is referencing, G21 and G20, are right above it, it's pretty easy to determine what those numbers are. However, when you have cells, if you have a formula and you're referencing a cell in a different worksheet or a different location other than right above that cell, then it's kind of hard to determine what those cells actually are. That's why I just give cells names, and you can do that in the formula tab, define name. You basically just click on the define name and give it a name so that when you go to the formula, you know exactly what you're dealing with. So I know that I'm dealing with the standard quantity allowed actual output, and I'm multiplying that by the standard quantity allowed standard quantity. So, and that's basically it for today. That's my tutorial, how-to video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, bye-bye.